Go. Well, good morning, good afternoon, whatever day, week, time we're reaching you. I am excited to come to you with another exciting Inside ProCents. Today, I am honored to host some friends of mine, Camden and Otis McGregor, with Tribe and Purpose. So, Camden, Otis, guys, say hello and tell us a little bit about Tribe and Purpose.
Yeah, you go, Cam. I always love hearing you speak.
Hey, so yeah, I think the best way I could describe Tribe and Purpose is really talking about us. We are a couple of leadership nerds. We love what we do. We love helping people become better leaders, create their legacy of leaders. And Tribe and Purpose is our mechanism for doing that. We do it all through helping you develop leaders inside your team so you can be more effective, lead a team of leaders, and create that legacy.
Nice.
I'll add one other thing that we do now, and that's our Steel Men Tribe. We're helping men become better leaders, better men, better fathers, better husbands, better members of the community that are making an impact to make the world better. I said a lot of betters, didn't I?
Hey, I think we should turn this into a drinking game. So those that are watching, every time Otis says better, you got to take a shot. Hey, get the recording. Let me know how many shots you took. I'm kidding. Hey, we're about having fun. We're about instilling better values in everybody. I got the privilege several years ago to be on the Tribe and Purpose podcast. I'm hoping Tribe and Purpose will repurpose this and utilize it on some of their platforms. But this is really to be an extension of what those that were not at the show back in November missed with Otis's talk. I know that we've tried at ProCents to share and comment some of the things that Otis talked about. I want to get back into that with Otis, but also get some other perspectives from Camden in that. So Otis, at the show, you talked about cross-training and how in the teams, what cross-training looked like. Can you elaborate that on that just a little bit?
Yeah, it all starts with I would say the foundational principle that we have in Special Forces, and everything is PACE, the acronym PACE, Primary, Alternate, Contingency, Emergency. And everything we did, we used that principle because our outcome, our purpose was to complete the mission, no matter what. To quote the Ranger Creed, though I be the lone survivor. And that, because of that, you have to do the preparation in order to be able to do that. And when you have certain skills, people that are experts in certain roles in the team, whether it's a medic, a commo guy, an engineer, weapons, intelligence, if one of those guys is out, whether he gets wounded, killed, sick, stubbed his toe and can't deploy, whatever it is, we still have to accomplish the mission. And there's a reason that guy is an expert in that role, because we need that capability in order to accomplish the mission. Mm-hmm. But if something happens to him, we can't just have a void and not have that part of the mission happen. Mm-hmm. That's why we cross-train. Yeah. And we would cross-train all the time. We weren't shooting. We weren't ruck marching or climbing or going for dives. We were cross-training. So, yeah.
So that brings me to a principle that you and I learned through an organization where we met. And it's kind of what they would call the first law, so the law of the architect. And then it went into the law of fair exchange. So in that, we're not looking at fair exchange here. We're looking at the architect. So you have a mission, and the mission is dictated by someone either on the team or someone of a higher authority. And y'all have been tasked to go complete this mission. And everyone has a specific role in which they excel at. But in business, if you're the CEO of the founder of the company, you founded the company to complete certain tasks, but then you realized, hey, my time is better spent here, and I need to bring on a sales guy. My time is better spent here, so I need to bring on an HR department. My time is better spent here, so I need to bring on a marketing team. Does that mean that the CEO or the founder needs to have a basic understanding to step into these roles to, make sure they can manage that? Or is that also cross training that when the CEO is looking to retire, that they are not an integral part of the business, but the business is what carries the value and not the owner? Because that's what I see with cross training and the promotion and what you're talking about. Can you elaborate on that?
I think if I could step in on that, I think you're spot on, Matt, that it's about having a certain depth of knowledge with it. I don't need to be the expert in all of the HR policies and those kind of things, but I have to know enough to be able to ask the right questions. I have to know enough to make sure they're doing their freaking job, right? I have to know all of those kind of pieces there. And, you talk about when it comes to knowledge, getting enough to know where you could tell that they're an expert because they know a lot more than you, but also you can check on what they're doing. You can make sure they're working in the right direction. And then the real key with that then is, and this gets into kind of the X factor behind cross training, because what you're talking about more is building redundancy and those kind of things. There's also this kind of hidden X factor behind that, which is when I go work with someone else in the team and I learn from them, I can apply a lesson from that to what I'm doing. If I go work with the marketing team and I'm in sales, I can adjust what I'm doing in sales to better work with what they're doing in marketing. I can learn something from them and apply it to what I'm doing. And that's the X factor that, it's really hard to measure, but that can provide a really big impact to the entire team, because you not only get that continuity of that redundancy factor, but also by having that kind of wider breadth of knowledge, even though it's not a super deep knowledge, like we said, like it is shallow. It is, we don't got time to go completely deep into everything, but even that shallow knowledge can really open up your worldview and really expand your horizon when it comes to the team.
Absolutely. And I love that, because I think when you have an understanding of what's going on, and I love the analogy that you talked about with sales and marketing, and I alluded to in earlier or other talks I've done with people, is I started in sales and then I went into marketing. But because I made the transition, I was leading the marketing approach as a salesperson. But now if you're in a large organization and you don't have line of sight, sometimes there might be a sales promotion going on that the sales team, that marketing's done, but the sales team doesn't know about. And now you're talking out two sides of your mouth, and you're not talking and moving in the same direction. So I think that's where communication's key. And I love what Otis talked about is, in the training, but in the training, there's a lot of communications going on, because you have to have that trust that when something does happen that's not according to plan, that you can overcome and move and keep moving forward.
Well, there's one other factor too I'll throw in, and that's empathy. When I understand how hard it is for you to do your job, then I can be empathetic towards you. And that not only does that help build better teamwork across the team, but it also helps me understand that, oh, yeah, now I know why it's taken Matt, 4 hours to get that done. He's not just screwing off, although we all know Matt. And sometimes yep, it is that Matt. No, but seriously, that empathy is huge on the team understanding side. Man, the understanding you gain from that, just knowing how hard their job is it's really immeasurable in building that teamwork. And the reality of it is you'll never replace the expert. The whole idea is that, hey, if the expert's not here, like going back to the team, these are guys who trained in that specialty anywhere from 9 to 12 months just on that specialty. They went to a school for that long. And then when they get to the teams, that's all they focus on, except for when we're cross-training. So you think about, that's the expert. You're not going to replace the dude, but you know what? You can bridge that gap if he's not there.
Yeah. Well, and I think bridging the gap is something that a lot of people are not ready for in business, because people have all heard the analogy. People don't quit a good company, they quit bad leadership. And I think leadership comes in creating these silos, not creating these bridges of saying, hey, we want you to move up in our organization. We need you to understand these things, but do it in a way that there is empathy, that, hey, they still have a task to do without, taking them away, but giving them the opportunity to learn more and grow within an organization. Because I think everyone that we work with on an ongoing basis is looking to increase their knowledge base and also increase their value in what they're able to provide to an organization or the people they encounter.
Well, let's talk about culture too, and I want to set this up for Camden to reference rugby and business. Really,
we made it how long? 15 minutes before rugby. Yeah. There we go.
but here's the real deal. If you have this culture where people are afraid that somebody's going to take their job, then they're not going to be willing to share how they do their job. Mm-hmm. They're afraid, and when they become afraid like that, and we say, "Hey, Cam, I want you to teach me how to do the X, Y, and Z," and then all of a sudden Cam's like, "Oh shit, does that mean he's going to get rid of me because I've got to teach Matt how to do my job? Mm-hmm. I must be going to lose my job. They're going to downsize me." Mm-hmm. Well, that's shitty culture, right? I mean, if you have the right culture, that's not going to happen. Yeah, on that, Cam.
No, 100%, because it does just go back to the culture of have you as the leader communicated it to your team what the value of that is? Mm-hmm. If it's just, hey, go learn from Matt over there, yeah, it might think that we're trying to replace Matt and we're trying to go through those processes there. But in reality, if you're talking through them about, hey, this is why we're doing it to learn empathy. We're doing it so that if somebody's sick, we can cover their position. We can learn from each other. We can build a more cohesive organization. Well, now that you're in that situation, we all know that it's not about my job and that I'm not at risk. We're out of that scarcity mindset, because that scarcity mindset, as much as leaders want to say, oh my gosh, how many times I done a bunch of leadership interviews asking folks biggest problems in their business. You have people that say they're trying to steal from us. Nobody wants to work hard. It's because you're not setting that tone for them. You're not building a culture where they feel like they should work hard. I could, look at the rugby example that you're alluding to there, and it's one where you recognize where you fit in the organization. I know there's people coming up behind me. I know there's people before me. I know that I may not be here forever. For us, it's 4 years, maybe 5. Mm-hmm. But those kind of things where you recognize exactly what it is, and that goes back to the culture of honesty from the leader, of telling people really what it is. This isn't about somebody trying to take your job. This is about us trying to get better as an organization. And frankly, I think if you're in a situation where your team has that scarcity mindset, either A, it's because you have that scarcity mindset and they're picking up on all your fear, or B, because you didn't freaking communicate to them what the purpose is, right? Mm-hmm. It all goes back to purpose. What is the why? Everything I coach, whether it's with Tribe and Purpose or with the University of Arizona Rugby, there's a why behind every single thing we do. And if you don't teach your team the why, then you can't expect them to perform, especially without you being there. If you're not keeping the why, if you don't have a culture built around the why, then they need you to constantly be there. And now you're not a leader, you're a manager. And you're going to micromanage them every single day, and they're going to hate you for it, and you're going to hate them for it. And it's not going to be any good, because you have to have the why in order for them to function independently. Which actually, I'll throw it back over to you, because that's great in my rugby world. But I know we talk about centralized planning, decentralized execution in the Green Beret world. Yeah. And that's a really big piece around that why too.
Well, yeah, and that's how you have success. You have to have that decentralized execution. The only way you can have decentralized execution is the preparation and the trust and performance, right? And by having decentralized execution in business, what you're doing, you're doing two things. One, as the leader, you're enabling yourself to have the time to lead, to do the things that you need to do as a leader,
or go to your kid's soccer game.
Yeah, yeah. And the other piece of that is you're enabling the team to have ownership, to want to. It's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I want to own something. I want to have something that I own and I contribute to, that I feel that I am a part of the organization. And that's a human factor of satisfaction, and keeping your team together and keeping them happy and fulfilled and wanting to do more. That's the power of all these sort of things. From the cross training to the empathy to the decentralized execution, which takes preparation, but that preparation has to have trust in it also.
Yeah. Well, and I think preparation is key to everything. And the one thing that I love about the sports world, and I know it's there in rugby, is in sports, there's always a season end goal. We're looking for a championship. We're looking for a title, and the team can buy into that. So that's the sports world. And I think a lot of people are going to watch this, have a sports team or have or a sports that they follow, and they've got a team that they're rooting for. And they're like, hey, we're hoping that they're communicating these things that allow them to focus and move in a single path. I'm trying to think, is that actually being done in business? Is at the beginning of each year, whatever the fiscal year look like, say, hey, we're looking to increase our revenue by 20%. Here's some of the things that we're going to do. Marketing, you're going to do this here. HR, we need to hire 3 new people to, better help with our outbound calls, whatever it may be, or operational execution and getting stuff out in a more timely manner. Is that being done, or is it because businesses have gotten so big or so decentralized that the goal is not really clear to the team?
I think it's not necessarily. I think it's a little bit inherent to business in itself because the goals aren't as sexy. Come on, Matt, you said 20%. What the hell is 20% mean? We're talking numbers stuff.
And where's the why?
Yeah, exactly. And
why?
no why
20%?
And I think that's where the sports world, it's really great. And there's a downside to this too, which I can touch on. But the great thing is, if you come and ask any guy on my University of Arizona rugby team, what do we want to do? We're winning a national championship. That's the goal. That is straight goal. We go from there and say, okay, well, how do we want to do these things? Get buy-in from them, make sure they're giving into the how, and then I can explain the why behind those actions, right? But in a business, you start talking about hiring and these kind of different things, it gets a little bit squirrely. It's hard, it's abstract, it's hard for me to imagine. I can picture lifting that trophy up. That's a very simple goal, right? I can't picture what it's going to look like when we have 20% more revenue at the end of the year. That doesn't compute as much to me. But I think you're completely right, Dad. The next level to that is you have to communicate that why. If you're doing something boring, you have to communicate the why. And I'll give you the sexy rugby example for it. And it's not sexy who knows rugby. I'm talking groundwork because I'm the groundwork guy with U of A, and it is boring, and the guys hate me for it because it is not fun. It's not sexy. It is just rolling around in the grass, and it's not fun at all. And they hate me for it, right? But every single time I start that off, I start with the why. When we wrap up a practice, I end with the why. Because they have to understand that even though it's not sexy, even though it's hard work, even though it's boring, if you do this every single time, it could win us a game. And it's really crucial. And if you don't do it, it could lose us a game. But it's that idea that you have to have the why there of why the hell do I need to score the try, shoot, land on my right side, but not on my left side, and then roll this direction, but not that direction. And all those little things, all those little nuances that I teach those guys, if they don't understand the why, now we're just rolling around in the grass for no freaking reason. And that's not going to get any buy-in from the team. So you have to lead with that why, especially if it's something boring, especially when it's something boring.
Yeah. I'll also say that there's a misnomer, and you know me, and I'm like, hey man, words mean things, right? Well, a mission has an end state. So a company can have a mission, which, our mission for 2026 is, raise revenue by 20%. But if we don't have an underlying purpose that keeps us going beyond that, so, and I'll just break it down this way. So purpose is fulfilled, it's not achieved. Meaning there's always more I can do. There's always more I can put into my purpose. Everything. I can never fully complete it. I can only fulfill it. A vision, a mission, because in the Army, we had who, what, when, where, why, and an end state in every mission. And the ones we didn't have an end state in were the ones that were all goofed up, like Afghanistan, like Iraq, where we didn't have a clear end state to work towards. We were just there doing the work.
Yeah.
So if you go back to your business and you look at your business and you say, here's our purpose. Our purpose is to increase the power of connection amongst powerful organizations to help them make a better impact in their industry, like ProCents. But our mission is to connect 150 people or grow our, what the heck's it called? The followers on our LinkedIn account to 3,000 by the end of 2025. Hint, hint, go on to LinkedIn and follow ProCents. But those are missions with an end state, right? Just like your vision has an end state. And this is where the difference happens with great leaders. They can take and understand this, and then they can sell it, because that's what you're doing, influencing your team by selling this thought and idea to your team. And when they buy into it, that's when great things happen in your organization.
And I think there's a little piece of nuance there, which is also, you got to sell. It's not just selling the vision, it's also selling the purpose and recognizing how to differentiate between those two. Going back to the whole, like, somebody being scared that they're getting replaced, right? So I've got 75 guys in the U of A rugby team. They are fighting for spots. They are guys who could get replaced any day. Like, that is a real thing. They're fighting for that. When it comes to our mission, it's the national championship we talk about. That's not our purpose. The reason I can get guys, even though Otis is trying to take my spot, trying to take my jersey from me, even though that's a reality right now, because the kids all understand, or these young men all understand, that there is a purpose beyond that, they're not operating in scarcity. Because they know it's not about just, could we win a national championship this year? Yeah, that's cool. I would love to. I would love to win more. But that's the idea, is that we're looking at more than that. We're looking at, hey, can we give these guys, can we grow our program to a point where we're putting people in a position to achieve? We're getting guys drafted into Major League Rugby. We're getting guys to graduate with good degrees and actually have good grades, which, back when I was playing, we didn't do. Now they do, right? There's all these kind of things that are so much bigger than just the national championship. And when you get that and you explain that and you sell that to people, that's how you get traffic. That's how you get people interested in it. Going back to the leadership surveys I talked about doing last year, one of the other things that came up all the time was like, well, how do I attract good talent? How do I get people involved? And so, well, you got to be attracted. You got to be attracted to them. Like, what are we talking about? You have to sell them on something that's exciting. It's not just, here's your paycheck. Because if I say, hey, Matt, here's your paycheck, I'm now competing with everyone else just on paycheck. There's no why, there's no extra, but there's a value that I could offer in that purpose. But it takes you as the leader being able to sell that. And I'll tell folks, this is a little bit of an arbitrary quote on the stat. If I remember right, it was a 20%, but there was a study a little while back on purpose and impact in a job. And basically it was that if you saw a strong why, it impact, like you were serving the community, helping the little sea animals, whatever it is, right? That it was worth
save the sea turtles.
Save the sea turtles. There we go. Well, if you're saving the sea turtles, guess what? That's worth a 20% boost in income, which is a good thing. And that's pretty freaking good. And that's how strong the why is. So it's not just foo-foo stuff. I mean, we ain't foo-foo people here. It is a real thing, that there's a real impact, that if you give somebody the why, just like you said, Matt, people don't leave the organization, they leave the leaders. Because the leaders giving them the good why, they'll stick around through all the bullshit. That gets into, there's a negative into that too. That's that nonprofit into the spectrum burnout that can get really bad. But there is so much importance to having that why and communicating that with your team.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something that people have to work on. As a leader, you have to work on that mission, that purpose, and that statement year in and year out, and have constant communication with your team to make sure that, because people change over time. They say, I've heard 4 years, 7 years, but let's say is a 7-year cycle. And if you can get someone to stay on your team for 7 years in this day and age, you've done something. But as people are changing, you may have to change that purpose of, what's keeping them there. Is it the check? Is it the vision of, hey, we're going to help feed, so many people. Hey, we're going to help save the sea turtles, whatever it may be. Those are the things that have to be instilled and help give people a more of a purpose of why they're doing their job. So it's bigger than themselves. Because I think that's something that's missing with a lot of people, is they're lost in their why, but they know they have more to offer. But when it's shown what they are offering and it is making a bigger impact, you do get more buy-in. And I think that's something a good organization, a good leader can really articulate in a way that is going to get that buy-in that the majority of the team is going to move forward with. You're not going to get everyone. And I'm not trying to get everyone to say, yes, that's 100% success rate. It doesn't happen. But what is a a meaningful success rate? Is it 70%? Is it 80%? Because you're always going to have some outside factor that's going to keep you from being 100%. But how can you achieve your goals with those things? Whether it be cross training, hey, we lost someone, but someone else was cross trained in there and they can fill in. And that's where they really wanted to be. They started here, but they really wanted to be there. Now you're fulfilling someone else's goal and mission to let them achieve their goals, because we all have goals, but how are we, properly communicating that?
And those, you talked about working towards 100%, and I would say that still should be the goal no matter what. We always want to work towards that. It's hard to get to. It might be impossible depending on the team. But I think the key there is recognizing, when it comes to the communication, how do you communicate to those people as individuals? What is their individual why? Recognizing that. We talk about our alignment matrix, which I could draw out if we had the chalkboard here. We should have gone out there. But basically, the idea is you have your mission, vision, and purpose, right? Mm-hmm. Your organization has that. You as the leader have that, and then each member on your team has that. And the more aligned you can be across that matrix, the more bought in your team is going to be. The longer they're going to stay. You're going to get them to stay for that 7 years and all of that. But that takes you as the leader taking the time to understand what their why is. And there might be a why that can get you to, kind of to your point, Matt, 70% right off the bat. But hey, here's our why. It's exciting. We're saving the sea turtles. Boom. 70% of us are buying it. Awesome. Yeah. Well, what about that other 30%? What do they want? Hey, 5% might just want the paycheck. There you go. You understood their why. They are, their purpose is inside of their family. So they just want to provide for their family. Okay, we're set there. They might have all sorts of other aspects to it. Like I could point to U of A. We mentioned, national championship. That's a really big, enticing thing for a lot of guys. Getting drafted to go play professionally is really big for a lot of guys. Oh, I got a lot of guys who know they ain't going pro. I got a lot of guys who know they're not going to be on that 23 that plays for a national championship. And you go ask them what, like, dude, I love it. I love Otis. I love Matt. I just want to be here. I just want to bleed with these guys. I want to work with these guys. And if they couldn't care less about what the end goal is, they're there for that. So to get that guy motivated, to get them bought in, you have to communicate that why. And so I think that's a really good way of looking at it is, what's the thing that's going to get you 70% of the team? What's that big why? What's the thing that's going to get you the next 15%, next 10%, next 5%? And if you can piece those together, then that's going to show you basically how often you should be communicating those things to your team. Because also, if you zoom in too much on one of those small ones, I start talking about just having fun out there. These kids are leaving. The guys who want to go pro, they're going to leave because they're not there to have fun. They're having fun, but they're there to go win national championships and to go pro. So you have to recognize what that is and communicate it in a way that's not going to scare away people that don't relate to that why.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I love in all that is, and I think to Otis in his military background, and some of the books I've read, the Hardest Day, I can't remember if that's the exact title. It was written by a Navy SEAL going through a selection of SEAL Team 6. But they talk about, as you come into the military, you go into boot camp and you develop a brotherhood. And then let's say, we'll take the Army in this instance. You go from boot camp and then you're going to be assigned to a unit. But some of those guys are going to say, hey, we want to raise our hand to go try Ranger School. Now that's a much smaller pool of people going in, but some of the guys that maybe were in boot camp together are there. And now the task has gotten harder, but that brotherhood has gotten stronger. And then you go beyond that to special forces. Again, pool's getting smaller and the task is getting harder, but the brotherhood becomes stronger. This might be directed at you, Otis, but we're not trying to make work incredibly hard because it's already hard enough. But are there any things that you can say that you could speak to and say, hey, if you're embracing the suck at work, if, hey, we've got a tight timeline or something like that there, that's going to help bring people together, as opposed to, that scarcity that we talked about earlier that, creates separation and divide within an organization.
Yeah, well, it goes back to cross-training. I mean, what we started off with, that empathy and that understanding. And if you and I have spent time, me teaching you my role and you teaching me your role, and then when crunch time comes and let's say I've got my pass done and you're still wading through it because of extra focus on your area of specialty. Well, guess what? Because we've cross-trained, I can go help you.
Mhm.
And not be the guy who comes in and says, what can I do to help? And you go, well, shit, I'd have to spend 3 hours teaching you how to do this.
Mhm.
You've already taught me how to do it. You
Mhm.
may have to spend 15 minutes refreshing me on the problem set. And then
Yeah.
guess what? We can work together. And when we work together on a problem, we're going to be tighter as a team, as an
Mhm.
organization. You know, I've always said misery loves company. You
Yeah.
talk about that brotherhood. The reason that brotherhood happens is because it sucks. Each time it sucks worse. And
Mhm.
it gets harder and harder and harder. That's why rugby teams are so tight, because they do the groundwork together and it sucks.
Mhm.
Misery loves company. And they get to talk about how much it sucked yesterday, how
Yeah.
much it sucked last week. Remember last season? Man, yesterday, all these new guys are talking about how hard it was yesterday. They didn't see shit. Last season, Coach Cam had us doing that for 17 hours straight. We were doing it up and down the field and back and forth. Yeah, that's where the camaraderie starts to build, and that empathy and that teamwork and truthfully, the love of your mate to your left and right,
Mhm.
not just in the sense of, you know, touchy feely or foxhole love or
Mhm.
that sounds really gay. I'm not going to do foxhole love. We're gonna talk about foxhole brotherhood. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, choose your words mean things, folks. But it is that sort of thing. That's what starts to build that cohesion in your organization and the trust and the empathy side to side. And then when the leader dives in, because the leader should also not only understand what's going on, but have a basic understanding of, Matt, we're going through that pricing again and the spreadsheets. Let me sit with you and let's walk through this and see where that mistake was, because there's a mistake in it. The outcome was this, and I know I really don't think that's a right number. So let me sit with you and walk through that. And that's where the leader is empathizing with the team and how to get things done, and we're continuing to build that trust and empathy amongst the team. And that's where it goes back to the 20% that Camden was talking about, because you know what? Back to what I said earlier with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I feel that I am contributing to the larger organization's success.
Mhm.
And I think the other piece I'd add on to that, Matt, is, you talk about like embracing the suck and putting people in those crappy situations. Now, you said this, and I don't know if you caught the wisdom behind it. You said business sucks a lot. It's hard a lot of the time, right?
Mhm.
Then we as leaders need to communicate that. When
Mhm.
I go make guys do sprints, they know it sucks. I don't have to say, guys, this sucks, doesn't it? Oh, aren't we the team? Like, no, they know. But when you are working in those silos and it's just me chipping away at the accounts receivable all by myself in my office, or we're working from home and we're all separated, it feels isolated. That's because the leader isn't communicating, one, that we're all doing this together, that we are all contributing towards that goal, just like you said, Dad.
Mhm.
And then also kind of communicate that it sucks. Like, I know that sounds silly, but like, communicate that to your team and then reward them with something. The joke of the pizza party comes to mind, but it's like, you do have to show something. It's like, hey, this does suck. We are all in this together. Let's push through it. And then on the other end, things are going to be better. Whether it's the pizza party or we hit our goals and now we all get a Christmas bonus, whatever it is, you have to communicate that suck a little bit. You can't gloss over it. Because I think we as leaders want to act like everything's great. And we want to act like everything is going so well and it's easy and all this. We don't want to tell our team that their job is hard, because then we'd be worried that they don't want to do it or they would not work as hard or those kind of things. But in reality, if I'm busting my ass, I need you to tell me my job is hard, because that makes me feel better about how hard I'm freaking working. And that makes me, it's empathy. Exactly. We need to know that we're working hard for the team. It's not just, hey, good job. It's, dude, Matt, you busted your ass for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I saw you working. Thank you. And when you communicate it like that, you get more of the buy-in from your team. And it all goes back to that empathy as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that comes the empathy, but also communication, and recognizing people and the efforts that they're putting in. Not everyone's going to want a pat on the back. They're like we've talked about, they're going to want to understand their why, their paycheck, whether it be, family time. But, sometimes you just got to say, hey, great job as a team, and lift those people up and give them an opportunity to really shine. Because without our team, I don't think anyone's achieved anything great by themselves. They've always had someone. And I think Otis and I, we've talked about this here. Might have been on when we were together before the show. It's people starting in the garage. It wasn't a guy in the garage, it was two guys in the garage, talking about Apple or, IBM or something like, or Microsoft. It was people that, saw a vision, said, hey, we got to do this, but you've got to work together and then figure out how you can grow and expand to multiply that for max effect. And whether that be something for a large business or a small business, we have to understand, the teamwork and how those things are going to make us feel important and give us that drive to change the world and environment that we're trying to facilitate growth in.
Mm-hmm. And I think, it's as I'm thinking about it, it's really just, this is the crappy golden rule. It's always communication, right? Mm-hmm. If we are in a situation and I act like we're not in that situation, you're not going to trust me, right? Mm-hmm. If you think your job sucks, I'm like, come on, Matt, it's easy. Why would you trust me, right? I have to recognize exactly where we are. Like I think of this happened a couple of years ago with U of A rugby team. We had we are a big organization. We like to play lots of games, and sometimes there's teams that don't show up in those kind of things. And I had to have this conversation with a bunch of my boys once on a Saturday. So it's game week. We're building up the whole week. Game time, game time, game time. We're so excited, building up for it. They don't show up on Saturday. Just straight up don't show up. And we're sitting there. I had to bring the guys in and go, hey guys, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
This sucks. Like I could sit there and go, guys, back to work on Monday. No, this sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. And then we can come together and work our way through it. But if I, as a leader, went in there and tried to act like everything was great, then they would not believe me, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm denying the thing that's happening in front of us. I'm ignoring the elephant in the room. We all see it, right? We have to be honest with that rather than trying to act like everything's hunky-dory when things aren't. And I think that's where, again, we as leaders, we want to be positive. I think optimism is a superpower as a leader. It is one of the best things you can do.
Every leader has to be optimistic.
You should. And you also, that optimism, if it's constant and you're never pointing to the negative things, actually, no, those aren't at odds with each other. Let me fix that. Because you can be optimistic and still point to the negative. Because you're pointing about how you'll get through. And that's the difference there. But you still have to acknowledge that it's there and not act like everything's totally fine. You have to meet the team where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the greatest thing is meeting the team where they're at. And I don't want to continue down this too much because I don't want to take away the value that you guys are creating. But one of the things that I want to, give the opportunity for the audience of ProCents and then, for those that are Tribe and Purpose subscribers is another reason to subscribe, and, find these nuggets of truth that we're all, talking about and how we can implement those. But, we can talk about it and we can show you where you need to implement. But that's not what I do. That's what Tribe and Purpose does. That's what Steel Men Tribe does. So give me a little bit, maybe a 30 or 60-second spill or your elevator pitch, whatever that may look like, on Tribe and Purpose and how people can get engaged with y'all to come into their organization and help them go, crap, I'm missing the empathy. I'm missing the communication. I'm missing the talking about the suck. So how can they engage with you, Camden, and you, Otis, there? And then also let's talk about how they can get involved with Steel Men Tribe as well.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and hit on the first piece and let you handle the Steel Men. The way we like to put best thing you can do is go to 10xyourteam.net, find the right leadership development system for you. We think about it in kind of 3 different silos. The first is the DIY. It's things like this, because Matt, we're going to repurpose this going on our channel too, right? It's things like this where it's all 3 lessons that you can apply. So if you can't afford to work with us or you're not even sure yet, start learning some of those lessons, DIY your leadership, and see if you can get that impact. Then next we have our Done With You, which is our green Green Beret leadership program, where we help you develop a team of leaders so that they can function, like we were saying, with that decentralized execution, where everyone is talking about empathy. It's not just you at the top trying to spread empathy. Every single person is a beacon of empathy, a beacon of culture inside of your team. And that's where you get to that really powerful place. And then lastly, we have our Done For You service, which is our fractional COO, where we come in and work ourselves out of a job and try to build out that company culture, those systems and processes that you need to sustain your growth and hit that next level. And really, as the CEO, to step out of that operation space and go do what you're good at, go focus on your genius a bit and do what you need to do to help the team. And we come in and help with that with our fractional COO piece. So throw it over to you.
Yeah, well, and I'll just say one last thought on that the outcome is we help you create a culture of success that attracts and retains the top talent in your industry. Doesn't get any more important than that. And then with our Steel Men Tribe, what we're doing is we are helping men become better men. Frankly, I got tired of the BS and that is bumbled up in society, social media, television, TV shows, cartoons, you name it. All this stuff where being a man who does manly things like holding the door, digging a ditch, fixing something, moving to the sound of gunfire. That's what the world needs. The world needs more men like the dude who tackled the guy at Bondi Beach and took his freaking gun away from him, stopped him from killing the Jews out there on Bondi Beach. Sorry for the political, that's not even political reference, that's human reference, sorry. So I take back my apology. Because you know what? We need men to be men. The world needs men who are willing to stand for what is right and use the masculine energy, the God-given masculine energy in them to attack, to attack problems and get it wrong, but keep attacking until we get it right.
Yeah.
Because that's what masculine leadership is. I'm moving out and I'm fixing things. And it's follow me. It's the old Fort Benning infantry symbol and patch that says follow me with the, I can't remember, the Iron Mike probably is what his name is. I can't remember for sure. And it's just a guy saying, follow me. He's got a rifle in one hand and his other hand is doing the John Wayne move out.
Yeah.
That right there is what the world needs. And that's why we created the Steel Men Tribe. And we are changing the world through our Steel Men Tribe. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah. Well, and I want to make sure that I'm going to put that in the captions below so people can reach out and get involved, because being a leader, affecting change, you cannot sit on the sideline. Get off the sideline and get involved. Be active, be intentional in what you're going to do. And whether it be in your personal life or business, you have to take action. If you're going to sit around and, with your thumb up your ass and not do anything, the only person you can blame for where you're at is yourself, because you're not taking actions to move forward. So I encourage people to reach out to Camden and Otis to learn how to better their business and also become better men. Because if you're in my network and I'm reaching out to you on a daily basis, or you might get a text from me with my ugly mug on the screen saying, hey, thinking about you, brother, you're not alone. Keep going. That little bit of motivation is what I get from people, and I'm giving to people, because it is something that we all need as guys to say, hey, get off your ass. Life is tough, but you're not doing it alone. And we talk about that empathy. It's not easy. Being a father, being a husband, being a business owner, or just being an employee, it's not easy, but you got to figure out how to do it and just get up and keep moving.
And like we said earlier, it can suck, and we don't got to act like it doesn't suck. But just like in those situations we talk about, whether it's you, earning your Green Beret, me out there with the rugby guys, gosh, you got me, me out there with the rugby guys, whatever it is, it's not oh, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Oh, sprints are hard. No. Hey, brother, sucks. Let's get to work.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah. We can't play the victim, if we play the victim, we're going to blame ourselves. But hey, guys, I greatly appreciate this here. Is there any last bit of truth that you want to drop on us before I kind of close it out. But if not, we'll close it out and go from there.
Yeah, I got my one thing I want everybody to know and understand, and that is to live your life with intention in pursuit of your purpose.
Love it.
And I don't have a good nugget to follow that up with, but I'll give one call to action, which we didn't say earlier. Check out 10X Your Team with Camden Otis on YouTube. Subscribe there. That's where you get all that DIY leadership. Check out his whiskey words. If you like your whiskey and cigars, you get real jealous watching him be a whiskey philosophizer.
Yeah. Hey, and I didn't open up a bottle of bourbon or whiskey to, for this one here, but maybe next time we'll do that.
You're East Coast. What is it? 11 o'clock? You're fine.
Yeah. I start drinking way earlier than this most days anyway, so it's all right. You can't drink all day unless you start in the morning. That's
there you go, brother.
Words of wisdom right there. Take that to the grave. Well, guys, I greatly appreciate both of you. And as I've tried to close everything out with a little bit of consistency here, because it's part of our model. For all of our future and current members, remember that success begins with consistency. So do be a part of the ProCents culture and know that ProCents is where the power of connections and where professionals connect. I'm bringing people like Otis and Camden to this to help you better your organization. Otis has been a guest speaker for the last 2 years at our event. He's already talking about coming back for year 4, which will be in this year, August, at the Rosen Hotel, Shingle Creek in Orlando, Florida. So come down there, bring your family, get there a couple days early, kick them out Sunday. Stick around for a round of golf, have a whiskey, cigar with myself or Otis. Camden, if you want to come, we got you taken care of. Thank you so much for joining us today on Inside ProCents.